Pizza Roll, quite the game. It's a funky sort of puzzle platformer Katamari Damacy-like, in which you play as a little ball of dough. I'm not quite sure what the lore or backstory of the game is, but I'll just say he's named John Doe, because, I'm funny like that. But regardless, John Doe has to do things with his life, as we all do. And in his case, he has to serve his customers. He does this by rolling around at the speed of sound and acquiring ingredients to attach to his body and serve himself up in the fiery crucible of the oven to be consumed by the ravenous, all-devouring beasts that are his customers. But he's fine. Don't worry about him. Today I will be analyzing this quaint little gem of a video game using the MDA framework to highlight the core functions of the game and what makes it tick. So, join me as we enter the curious kitchen of Pizza Roll. Take it away, John Doe. To begin with, we will discuss the game's mechanics, and here is where the game is at its simplest. The only actions that you, the player, can make as you inhabit the squishy and surprisingly bouncy body of John Doe is to, as I mentioned earlier, roll around at the speed of sound, and also jump. That's it. That's pretty much the extent of what you, the player, can do in terms of controlling the otherwise soulless husk of John Doe. This may appear incredibly simple, and indeed it is, but this simplicity is what allows the game to have a surprisingly addictive gameplay loop. Indeed, bouncing around all over the place can be quite satisfying. However, if rolling and jumping around in an empty void was all the game offered, then it would get tiring pretty quickly. But, fortunately, John Doe's business establishment is not an empty void. I imagine he wouldn't attract many customers if this was the case. However, to continue discussing why this simple gameplay loop can be addictive and satisfying, we will now move over to our next section, Dynamics. Ooh, so dynamic. Now, let me let you in on a little trade secret, a little industry experience, if I may. You ready for this? It's a secret, so, don't tell anyone. A pizza isn't a pizza if it's just dough. If it's just dough, well then it's just dough. And you, my friend, would not walk into the finest pizzeria on the streets of Naples and say, "My good fellow, I would like your finest ball of dough, please." No. I'm telling you now, you would be greeted not with a delectable meal, but only looks of confusion. No. The soul of the pizza, my friend, lies in what you put on the dough, and John Doe understands this intimately better than any of us, I wager, and so he has made the brilliant business decision to scatter all of his ingredients around his kitchen. Now, you chefs in the audience might be thinking, what? That's crazy talk. Why would you do that? Well, his cooking process is such that he must roll around the place and gather them upon his body, steadily increasing his size in order to create a pizza worthy of the gods of flavor upon his entry into the oven. You simply don't understand the process. Okay, but I hear you asking, the process. What does this mean? What does this mean for me, the player? Well, let me tell you, it means that the actual goal for you, the player, is to utilize the mechanics we just discussed, rolling and jumping, in order to acquire the correct ingredients scattered around the map to fulfill the order listed at the bottom right hand of the screen. As far as I can tell from my time playing, this order is randomly generated, whereas the ingredients around the kitchen have a set spawn point each run, although acquiring one will use it up until your next run. Ingredients are expensive, after all, and John Doe isn't made of cash. And this means that even though the order you have to make is different each time, with enough playthroughs, you'll eventually get used to the locations of each ingredient and might be able to form optimal routes to get the ones you need as efficiently as possible, them speedrun strats. Now, this might be a challenge because there are indeed a large number of ingredients, and because they get used up as you progress, it's difficult to keep track in your mind of which ones you've used and how to optimize your path. Regardless, this is not a problem for John Doe. This is part of what makes the gameplay loop addictive. The game has a low skill floor, and while I wouldn't say it necessarily has a high skill ceiling, repeated playthroughs make you better at the game in a relatively unique way compared to other games. You're not heightening your reflexes for an FPS or a fighting game. Or improving your strategies. You know, you're familiarizing yourself with the map such that it becomes easier and easier to traverse each time. This kitchen is your baby. You have to know how to get around it. This steady progression is reflected in my own gameplay experience you're watching now. My initial runs only reach around 400 in terms of score, you know. Ew. Yuck. Ew. That's noob talking, you know, and I thought I was doing relatively well, but no. Eventually, I stumbled across the little power-up apples that double the score of your current order, and I was reaching the 700s after discovering that, you know. No more noob stuff, you know. These are pro gamer skills, you know, as the kids say. You know, so while my initial runs were simply about completing the order, I would later shift focus to finding those score multipliers when I knew I could get a perfect order in order to maximize their effectiveness. And I believe this leads into our discussion of the game's aesthetics rather nicely, you know, nice segue. Because what's the most important thing for a chef? To become better at cooking. Really, that's the most important thing for all of us. Not cooking necessarily, but you know what I mean. And to get better at cooking, you, like many skills, have to go through repetition, you know, over and over and over and over and over again. You hone your craft, you familiarize yourself with the canvas that is your kitchen and the paint that are your ingredients. Your first time around, what are you? Slow, sloppy, unrefined, pathetic, ill, patu, I spit on you. But no, again and again and again you do it and you find yourself dancing around the kitchen like a true master at work. Now you spit on me. You know, if you're into that, but I don't know, whatever. Now, obviously, cooking doesn't actually equate to bouncing across platforms and to stick ingredients upon your body. It would be a lot simpler if it was, but no, it's not. But the game still is able to evoke the feeling of working hard and dedicating yourself to your craft in order to satisfy not only your customers, who, you know, will hopefully leave happier and fuller, but also yourself. And of course, I have to mention the, let's say, thematically appropriate music that really gets you in the mood to cook, you know? When the moon hits your eye, like a big pizza pie, all that. Indeed, indeed. In conclusion, Pizza Roll, alternate title John Doe's Cooking Adventure. I hope the team that made this game is okay with me saying that, but, you know, it's a lovely little case study for how simplicity can still be effective towards a strong theme. Yes, John Doe may only be able to roll and jump, but darn it all, man, every chef has to start somewhere. And honestly, I struggle to find any faults with this prototype necessarily, as I believe it achieves everything it sets out to do, and nothing is really missing, per se. But, you know, I suppose more varied objectives would be nice, you know, serving up a proper variety of dishes rather than random generation. But, man, at the end of the day, part of the joy of cooking is just throwing ingredients together and seeing what sticks, even if it's like steak and chocolate or something, I don't know. That's the joy of creation, and I think our pizza roll friend here understands that just fine. Godspeed, John Doe.